The skies over Baghdad have been illuminated.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Do you remember those words? The skies over Baghdad have been illuminated. Well, the skies over Colorado feel like they've been illuminated, don't they? With the latest revelations coming out of day 1 and day 2 of the long-awaited preliminary hearings of Barry Morphew, so much more of the underlying dynamics that we were trying to figure out quite a few months ago have now, we've just got much greater clarity on that, haven't we? And so we're going to, in this episode, we're going to examine the final text to Suzanne on May 10th at 6:10 a.m. and also some of the other highlights from days 1 and 2 from the preliminary hearing. Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So, speaking about intertextualities, it should be no surprise that Barry fake texted his wife after she was dead. Chris Watts did the same, as did Patrick Frazee via Crystal Kenny, as did Scott Peterson via voicemail, and Jodi Arias, ditto. If digital breadcrumbs can be used as inculpatory evidence, it can also be laid down as exculpatory. The trick is knowing the difference. And so if we go to an article from Fox News, I'll put a link to that in the description. It refers to something in the preliminary hearing that was revealed that at 6:10 on the morning of his wife's disappearance, Barry sent her a text message. And what he said was, "You up? Happy Mother's Day. I love you." Now, one of the ways to figure out how disingenuous this was that Barry was heading to work on a Sunday in a city where it is illegal to do the sort of work he intended to do on a Sunday. He knew that, but he was guessing no one else would know. Big mistake. Going back to the Fox News article, this is quoting from it. Harris said on the same day that Suzanne and Barry clashed over cheating allegations on May 6th, Barry also sent his wife messages about suicide. And this is what he texted her. He said, "Going to see my savior. This life on earth is a mere grain of sand compared to eternity." That is what he texted Suzanne on May 6th, according to Fox 21. 2 days later, on May 8th, Suzanne texted her sister Melinda and said that Barry was abrasive and abusive. Now, and that's the end of the quoted section. So it appears that Barry was well versed at emotional blackmail. If there was a way to control Suzanne, it was to throw the kitchen sink at her, emotionally speaking, threatening to take his own life, I guess, if she left him. But Barry didn't want Suzanne to stay for his sanity or because he loved her. He needed her as a means to get his paws on her treasure. At least that's what I suspect. When it was clear that she was unwilling to be controlled, did Barry cash in his chips? So this is another quote from the article from Fox News. It reads, quote, Suzanne's iCloud account discovered on December 27, 2019, that she had been researching language schools in Ecuador after Libla allegedly told her that the country was a cheap place to live and with good health care, end quote. So what this shows, bear in mind, this was a search from December 27, 2019, so quite a few months before she disappeared. It shows that she'd been feeling unhappy for quite a long time. You know, prompting her to go to Ecuador, you know, that is quite a change. I think in the same way that Jeff was the opposite of Barry, I think she's looking for something that would be very different to the life that she was living in Colorado. She's just looking for a complete change, right? She's wanting to start a new life, and that hadn't happened in Colorado. But I also think that this long time looking for an exit reveals that she was conflicted, perhaps because of her beliefs, her daughters, and Barry, into sticking around even though in her gut she knew she needed to get out. Another quote from the article reads, quote, Barry Morphew's defense attorney, Iris Ayton, asked if the two exchanged nude photographs. Now, what do you think about that? What is this intended to do other than smear Suzanne to undermine her, so that in contrast Barry appears to be good? If Suzanne was a, quote, bad spouse, right, then that means Barry was a good husband. So if the one is bad, the other one's got to be good. No, that calculus is absurd. But it's nevertheless how people think, and Barry's elite female counsel are aware of that. And the mind effery is effectively all they have, I think, to defend Barry with. I mean, it's early, but we'll see whether they can come up with something really tangible, like an alibi. They don't have, what they've also got to defend him with, I guess, is no human remains. Another quote from the article, which is, I think, worth paying attention to. Let me just quote from the quote. Libler had planned a trip to Colorado in March 2020, but travel restrictions imposed at the onset of the coronavirus pandemic prevented him from coming to visit. The man she'd had an affair with for 2 years did not contact authorities after Suzanne disappeared, but spoke to investigators only once they'd identified who he was, investigators said. End quote. I must say, I find that pretty disappointing. If Barry has turned out to be a disappointment, I don't know whether one can say too many good things about Jeff. Going back to the article, quote, this is something Jeff said, apparently to the authorities, quote, if he knew about me, he would have come after me. And that's a reference to Barry. I just don't think he knew that Suzanne and I were together, end quote. Really. I also don't think Barry would have gone after him if he did know about him, because that would have exposed Barry. So I think it's a bit of a weak argument. Could there have been other reasons why Libler kind of remained silent? So anyway, when the coronavirus pandemic took hold, I wondered, what kind of impact would this generally have on true crime? How might it alter the true crime landscape? I was certain that it would, and that some cases would emerge that would either be tainted by it or directly driven by it. So we see here that travel restrictions prevented Jeff from meeting with Suzanne, and who knows, had they had a face-to-face encounter then, perhaps Suzanne would have left sooner. Maybe something would have happened earlier. Or otherwise, possibly Jeff would have gotten more involved in what happened to Suzanne. Maybe if Jeff saw that last time, and perhaps they had some kind of wonderful romantic connection, that maybe would have haunted him. That would have been almost like a sense of her being more real than the fog that sets in when you haven't seen someone for a while. I'm sorry, but I don't have very nice things to say about Jeff not approaching the police on his own. What I will say is that Patrick Frazier's mistress, who was actually, effectively an accessory after the fact, she also had to be found. And it sort of seemed like they needed to drag her into court. I mean, there was a plea deal and so on, but, she certainly didn't come forward on her own volition. She sort of needed to be encouraged in that way. And this sort of ties in with what I said in my previous video about Summer Wells. Justice isn't a given anywhere in the world, in any case. So when parties to a criminal case don't come forward, it benefits the perpetrators. When people aren't confronted, it benefits the perpetrators. If Barry wanted to have his cake and eat it, can't the same be said about Jeff as well? So questions remain whether a short rifle was used in the commission of this crime or a tranquilizer gun. I don't know about you, but I'm leaning towards the latter. All right, I'm not going to take it further than that. I won't be doing a live on the Summer Wells statement analysis, just because it seems like they are still busy working on that, so I won't really be going in that area for a couple more days. There are a couple of things that I've highlighted already, but I'm going to let it stew for a while. Also, for those interested in the Chris Watts case, I have put up a couple of posts in the community tab just dealing with some of the 3 years ago today, just going through the chronology. So if you're interested in that, head on to the community tab on my channel, and you can check out some of the content that happened 3 years ago today in the Chris Watts case. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.